Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the real world. We're going to begin our unit on integers and rational numbers. To get started, what I'd like you to do first is to read the first section of your notes. So there is a kettle shown on the picture, and that kettle is being heated by a block of dry ice. Well, you say, how could that be? Dry ice is so cold. So go ahead and pause the video and read the first section of the notes down to the integers consist of 3 numbers. And opposite integers are the positive and negative of the same number. They have an equal distance from 0 and are also known as additive inverses. Okay, so back to your notes. On the next page, we're going to talk about absolute value. So speaking of distance from 0, guess what? We have a name for that, and it's called the absolute value. The symbol is these 2 little vertical lines around whatever it is you're referring to. Now, if you think about distance, when you travel on a trip, when you go down south, you don't speak differently than if you go up north. You don't say, I went negative 300 miles down to Virginia, or positive 300 miles into Canada. You just say, I rode 300 miles. And distance is always considered to be a positive value. So therefore, absolute value is always considered to be a positive value. Let's take a look at the examples shown. The first one, the absolute value of negative 3 is, plain and simple, 3. The absolute value of 6, also plain and simple, 6. Now I can do operations including absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 3 we said is 3, plus the absolute value of 5 is just 5, and I get 8. Why don't you pause quickly and try 4, 5, and 6. Alrighty, so 4, we get 13 minus 8, which is 5. 5, we say the absolute value of 9 minus 6, which is 3. And the last one, you actually get negative 12. Now you might be saying, oh, you told us absolute value is always positive. But this little symbol outside is not being affected by the absolute value symbols. So this little symbol outside, which you've known before as minus, could also be considered negative or opposite. So I'm thinking of it right now as saying I want the opposite of the absolute value of 12, which is negative 12. How about number 7, 8, 9, and 10? Why don't you pause here and try those on your own? Is negative 3 the same as negative 3? Well, again, I think of this symbol as the opposite of. So is the opposite of the absolute value of 3, which is negative 3, the same as the opposite of the absolute value of negative 3? Sure, that's negative 3 also. So yes, because in both cases we're taking the opposite of the absolute value of 3. Number 8 asks what values could x take on? Well, If the absolute value of x is 13, then x could be either negative 13 or 13. If the absolute value of x is negative 2, what are the possible values for x? Well, it's not negative 2 because the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. It's not 2 because the absolute value of 2 is 2. So it's not this. It has to be this. What is this funny little symbol? This funny little symbol is called the empty set. And it says, guess what? There are no values that satisfy our given condition. Okay, there are no values that we can take where the absolute value of that number is negative. The next section, true or false. So is negative 6 greater than negative 4? Absolutely not. Negative 6 is less than negative 4 because it is to the left of negative 4 on the number line. If A is less than B, then the absolute value of A is less than the absolute value of B. Well, let's try some values. Let's say I let A be 2 and B be 4. Then is that true? Yes, it's true. But I have to also try some negative numbers. So let's try the one above. Negative 6 is less than negative 4, but if I take the absolute value of those, I'm sorry, that's now going to be false. And 0 is the only integer that's its own opposite. That is true. Moving on. Practice with integers in number sets. Go ahead and put the following numbers in order from least to greatest. So just do number 1 down there at the bottom of your notes. Okay, so if you're back with me, I'm going to put those in order and you can just follow along and check your answers. Now this example asked you from greatest to smallest, which is kind of counterintuitive, but yes, that was what the example asked for. So now I'd like you to pause and continue on and finish questions 2 through 13, and you can come back and check your answers. Okay, so if you had integers written 13 degrees below 0, a gain of 12 yards, etc., you can check these. If you didn't have the positives there, I'm not worried about that because we typically don't write positives when we write the positive numbers. And then questions 3 through 13 are shown here. So take a look at these, and I will page down a little bit so that you can get the ones at the bottom. Hopefully we have a good handle on our introduction to integers, and we'll take tomorrow and practice this some more. Have a great evening, everybody.